Hello all, welcome to La Excellence Science Reporter Gist series. We are starting with Science Reporter magazine November 2022. So this is the cover page of November 22 issue where we are focusing on digitizing the Indian economy. The features are basic sciences for sustainable development, careers in glaciology, cloud computing, and many more. So let's see what's in store. So the first topic we are going to cover is ISRO's maiden SSLV mission, where the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO planned an inaugural flight of its new small satellite launch vehicle, that is SSLV, which ran into rough weather. The small satellite launch vehicle SSLV. It is a new launch vehicle of the ISRO. It has been developed to lift small satellites like mini, micro, nano satellites 10 to 500 kg at low cost with quick turnaround time for commercial launch as compared to the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle PSLV. It has a payload capacity of up to 500 kg at 45-degree inclination to a 500 km low Earth orbit or 300 kg to a 500 km altitude sunk synchronous polar orbit. The vehicle can carry different combinations of CubeSats and micro and mini satellites into the orbit. The vehicle is also capable of supporting multiple orbital drop-offs, launch on demand flexibility under minimal infrastructure requirements. The initial development cost of the vehicle was around 170 crore rupees, and subsequently the cost per launch is estimated about rupees 30 crores. This is sharp contrast to the cost per launch of the PSLV at about rupees 200 crore. The SSLV is a three-stage solid propellant vehicle along with velocity trimming module VTM. The satellite injection into precise orbit is achieved through terminal stage VTM. Some new features include expandable bellow-based circular separation system and liquid propulsion-based terminal stage VTM. Some new features also include supercapacitors for powering the pyro systems, expandable bellow-based circular separation system for the second stage, OGIV composite payload fairing with co-cured cork thermal protection system, and liquid propulsion-based terminal stage VTM. In addition, SSLV has miniaturized low-cost avionics with commercial off-the-shelf COTS components, low-cost NAVIC integrated inertial navigation system, on-board checkout computer with minimum ground interfaces. The first stage, SS1, is the third largest solid booster of ISRO, containing 87 tons of solid fuel. The second stage, SS2, contains 7.7 tons of solid fuel, while the third stage, SS3, is a new composite upper stage solid motor containing 4.5 tons of solid fuel. The VTM on the top of the SSLV contains 0.05 tons of hypergolic liquid fuel. The VTM is equipped with 16 mmH MON3 thrusters, each capable of producing 50 Newton of thrust. 850 Newton thrusts are utilized for reaction control systems to change the stage's orientation in space, while the other 8 are used as axial thrusters for changing the velocity that can alter the stage's orbit. VTM provides roll control for the second and third stages and also has the ability to inject multiple payloads into different orbits. The SSLV has been developed with the sole purpose of launching small satellites to meet the demand of the burgeoning space sector, while India's workhorse Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, that is PSLV, will be spared for bigger missions. The SSLV is a much simpler version of the PSLV. It provides low-cost access to space on demand basis. It is ready to transfer vehicles with modular and unified systems and standard interfaces for end-to-end industrial production. The SSLV rocket can be manufactured in about a week's time, and it will take just 72 hours to set up with a team of 6 people. But in contrast, the PSLV requires a much larger team and over 60 days of lead time to be ready for a mission. The SSLV program is scheduled to fly 3 development launches, that is D1, D2, D3, before ISRO's commercial arm New Space India Limited NSIL takes up the flights for the customers. The second development launch is scheduled for the late 2022 and the third launch in the second quarter of 2023. A dedicated small satellite launch complex will be set up at Sriharikota, and a new launch site is planned at Kulasekarapattinam in Tamil Nadu for sun-synchronous polar launches. From this new satellite launch site, SSLV will fly on a trajectory that avoids Sri Lanka and the need for a dog-leg maneuver, which is required for the launches from Sriharikota. The other contemporary launch vehicles to SSLV are Minotaur 1 of the US, Start 1 of Russia, and Kuaizo of Chinese. Let us have a look at the payloads. The primary payload for SSLV D1 is EOS-02 and the co-passenger was Azadi Sat. EOS-2, formerly known as Microsat 2A, was a small experimental Earth-observing satellite. It is developed by ISRO as a test payload for the maiden SSLV launch. The satellite carried 2 payloads, a mid-wavelength and a long-wavelength infrared camera with a 6-meter ground resolution. EOS-2 was intended to meet the increasing user demands for cartographic applications, urban and rural management, coastal land use, utilities mapping, and various other GIS applications. Azadi Sat was an 8-unit CubeSat structure weighing around 8 kg. It carried 75 different payloads, each weighing around 50 kg, and conducting firm-toe experiments. The firm-toe experiments are experiments of small sizes. The payloads include UHF-VHF transponder working in ham radio frequency to enable the voice and data transfer for amateur radio operators, a solid-state PIN diode-based radiation counter to measure the ionizing radiation in its orbit. It also had a long-range communication transponder and a selfie camera to click pictures of its own solar panels. The ground station, developed by Space Kits India, was to be utilized for receiving the data from the spacecraft. The Azadi-Sat's mission life was expected to last for 6 months. The significance of this project was to mark the 75th anniversary of independence. The satellite was built by 750 girl students, predominantly class 8 to 12, 10 each from 75 rural schools across India. Space Kits India SKI developed basic and simple experiments that enable students to learn the fundamentals of spaceflight and integrated the spacecraft parts with support of the teachers and SKI's online coaching. This was the first of its kind all-women space mission as part of promotion of this year's UN's theme, Women in Space. Now, what went wrong? All events up to the velocity trimming module ignition, that is SS1 ignition, SS2 ignition, SS1 separation, S2C separation, SPLF separation, SS2 separation, SS3 ignition, SS3 separation went well as expected. The problem seems to be at the SSLV terminal stage VTM. As per the launch profile, the VTM was supposed to have burnt for about 20 seconds at 653 seconds after the launch. However, it burnt only for 0.1 seconds, denying the rocket of the requisite altitude boost. Both the satellites on board, SSLV D1, the primary EOS-2, the secondary Azadi-Sat, were separated from the vehicle with the ATM burn. The injected spacecraft, however, missed their intended orbital trajectories and entered into a 356 km into 76 km elliptical orbit instead of 356 km circular orbit. The satellites were no longer stable at a much lower perigee of 76 km and fell to the earth due to atmospheric drag. At first sight, this deviation appears to be due to a sensor fiasco in the VTM phase and mission software logic failed to identify and correct it. A committee would now analyze it and recommend the appropriate corrective action. ISRO will come back soon with SSLV D2 after implementation of the committee's recommendations.